Hello, welcome to episode 1 of the Unfiltered podcast, the place where you truly get to show up as all of you, where we combine the soul and the science to get you on the path of designership of your own life, where we really get to move out of the default survival mode into the version of you that gets to tap into all the wisdom, all the overflow, all the love, all the celebration as you're really starting to claim and step into that highest timeline. Hello, welcome. I am your host, Dr. Courtney Spiteri, and you are officially, oh my goodness, so excited for this. You're officially tuning in to episode 1 of the Unfiltered podcast. Like, yes, can we have a moment of celebration? Having worked with so many incredible female entrepreneurs, people on the path of really claiming this highest timeline for themselves, I always give this piece of advice that I want to give to myself in this now moment of enjoy the first. Like, enjoy the first. You never get the first anything back ever. And it's so often that our brain will want us to be at the end and it'll make the first or the beginning stages of any new venture wrong because it's unknown. But really, this is the best bit. Like, this is the bit before it all starts to unfold, before the magic, before you find the people that have been searching for you, before you even see where this goes, that you really get to relish in and you really get to enjoy. This is often, as I say, like the best, greatest part of the journey because you're actually doing the thing that you have no evidence for yet. You're doing it. You're showing up. You're stepping out. What I love to call the devotional edge. You're in the devotional edge. There's no past blueprint yet that it's going to work, that it's going to land, that people are going to like it. None of that. But you're so deeply in tune with who you are in this now moment that it doesn't matter. You're so here in what you're here to do, in your truth, in your essence, that none of the outside noise can even be heard. It's like this is where we show up from. This is the energy. This is the space. And I am welcoming you so deeply into this first episode with me. So unfiltered. Let's go. So to introduce myself, as I said, my name is Dr. Courtney Spiteri. I'm a doctor of neuropsychology, clinical neuropsychology, and I also hold a Bachelor of Behavioral Neuroscience, honors in psychology. I have over a decade of training and experience understanding the human, behavior, the brain, psychology, neuropsychology. And it was such an interesting, my journey has been so interesting because even though this is such a deep passion of mine, understanding us on all these incredible levels of like literally what makes you in this moment you, everything for me really cracked open in 2022 when I finally got the opportunity to discover who I was on such a deep level, where life gave me the exact circumstances, which I'm going to share with you today, that required me to grow beyond the textbook and to grow beyond the frameworks and to grow beyond the safety of who I knew myself to be. And now what's come from all of this is just like this quantum train and this quantum timeline where I'm literally waking up, pinching myself, moving from a completely different part of me, a completely different essence, a different wisdom that is now again creating this timeline. I'm like, what is even happening? Where am I? What is going on? Who is this woman sitting here creating her first podcast in this moment where she gets to combine the deep love of science and combine it so magnetically with the soul? Again, so that you have the tools to not only understand yourself, but understand the system that you're in, the nervous system, the body, the brain, and then using all of that to really liberate you on such a deep level that you finally start reconnecting back into who you are. You really start loving life, stepping into life, being with the moment, finding the magic in the mundane. And this is something, as I said, that really started to happen for me back in 2022 when I walked myself through fire. I'm going to share this part of the story that it felt like climbing a mountain in darkness. That's what 2022 was for me. So I want to take you back to Easter Sunday, 2022. At that time, I was like 34 weeks pregnant, and I'm sitting on the floor of the spare room in our beautiful 3-bedroom house in suburbia Melbourne, and I've got all my birth cards laid out. I was planning on a beautiful water birth, home birth. VBAC from my first. I was pregnant with my second baby boy, and I'm laying all my beautiful affirmation cards. I have the pegs, I've got the fairy lights, I'm hanging them up. I'm planning in this moment to just create the spaciousness in this room because baby can come at any time now. And I'm sitting there with my toddler next to me, and my phone starts to ring, and it's my mom. And there was this moment where I looked at my phone and I was like, this is weird. Like, why is she calling me? I'm literally going to see her in a few hours for lunch. I'm going to see her for Easter lunch. We're driving down to my sister's place. And I answer it anyway. Maybe she needs me to pick something up. Maybe we need some ice, whatever it might be. And I'm sitting there on the floor in the spare room with all these cards laid out. And mum says so quickly, Courtney. I was like, yeah, what is it? What are you up to? Chantel's committed suicide. And in that moment, everything stopped. If you've ever experienced loss and if you've ever experienced grief, particularly unexpected grief, sudden loss, you know this feeling where it's like the soul leaves for a moment, where everything you know shatters into a million pieces on the floor. And I let out what I can only describe now as like a wail or a scream, and my husband comes in the room and I hand him the phone. My mum tells him the news that my older sister, the night before, had chosen to take her own life. And I've got a 2-year-old sitting next to me, confused. I've got a baby I'm about to birth in my belly. And there's a part of me, all of me, that's still on that floor, that stopped when that moment in life arrived. And we do what we know to do, don't we? Life goes on, even when life's so hard. And we got up and we had a shower and we went for Easter lunch. Probably in hindsight now, a combination of adrenaline, disbelief, processing. The body and the brain is so incredible. We know this. It's so incredible at protecting us when it needs to. It's so incredible in its ability to show us our own strength in these moments where we just keep moving forward. Life just keeps moving forward. And that's what happened. All of a sudden, I was the version of me that was now living without my sister, earthside, earthbound. And I was about to have a baby. And that moment and all those moments to follow feel like a blur. But at the same time, there are so many golden nuggets in there. Like there was a few days after I was driving down to see my mum on the Tuesday. We'd found out on the Sunday that Chantel had passed. And I remember we had to stop for petrol. And I'm standing in the petrol line ready to pay. And I was like, no one else knows that my entire world has just been shattered. No one else knows. No one knows this but me. And there was this push in life where it wasn't going to stop. It doesn't pause. The sun comes up, the cars keep going. We go to work, we go to jobs, we feed our kids, we go to the grocery store. Life keeps lifing. And all I wanted to do in that moment in the petrol station was scream out, stop. Like, why isn't everyone not stopping? I'm stopped. I've had to stop. You stop. And it just kept going. And there was so much noise and so much buzzing. And then we do what we do, don't we? And we keep going. And so the days rolled into weeks, and then all of a sudden I found myself giving birth to my second baby, terrified at this point for bringing another life into the world, because at this stage I understood that, well, life ends. And what happens if he comes in? Because once he comes in, he has to go out, because that's the way life works. And at that time, I couldn't see that that's the way life works for a reason, and that we're never actually going anywhere. We're really going home. But that was definitely a decision, a moment, a knowing that was going to come much later in the journey. And so as I'm wading through postpartum, deep in grief, facing all the parts of me that I have never, ever been willing to face, in the background of all of this is a song playing out. And sometimes the song's a little bit louder and sometimes it's a little bit softer, but it is a very familiar song. And it's a song of my dad, who is also battling blood cancer in the background through this whole entire period. counting the numbers. Where is his hemoglobin? Is it up? Is it down? Does he need one bag today? Does he need two transfusions? How is he feeling? Can he still walk up the stairs? Can he not walk up the stairs? Is this going to be the transfusion where it all stops? Is his body okay? No, he's okay. No, he's not okay. Again, this is playing out in the background. 16 weeks after giving birth to my second son, my dad also passes away. The duality of death and life compressed into a 6-month period, going through more in a few months than what any human often experiences in a lifetime. And the polar opposites, the love you feel holding your baby for the first time after giving birth, the excitement of being able to have a VBAC after emergency cesarean, the confusion of holding suicide and someone that's chosen to take their own life, the layers of your own grief, the layers of watching other people grieve, the layers of watching someone pass who's also been suffering for a really long time, the layers of family dynamics, of the complicated nature of relationships, of thinking you know everything and you know nothing, of betrayal, of love, of pain, of power, of purpose. It was a messy fucking 6 months. It was so messy. It was so deep. It took everything, every cell of me to keep going. And then a few weeks after my dad's funeral, we'd found out at this moment in time that things were not as they seemed, and that there was another big surprise waiting for us. And with all this activation energy of the past 6 months, of everything that had crumbled down and really felt like, the burning ash of my previous life, my husband and I decided to pack up our two kids, our tiny babies, and move states, move internet, interstate to a completely different location, away from support. It felt like the weirdest thing to be doing at the time. Like your world is literally crumbling and you move away from everything that you know. But in that moment, there was something bigger pulling me forward. There was so much pain. There was so much power in the pain that it had to start to be moved. I needed the spaciousness to breathe, to rediscover who I was, to get out of the familiar and really reclaim who I was here to be. I didn't know that at the time. At the time, I was like, get me out of here. This is insane. But we know, right? We know wherever you go, there you are. Wherever you go, there you are. So even though I had flown my family and my husband across Australia to restart, who was waiting for me at the other side? Hello, she's sitting right here in front of you. There she was, sitting right there in front of you. And all of a sudden, even though I was out of this old environment, which I was really blaming the environment and the people and the betrayals and the complications and the past and my childhood and all the things for being in the now moment of where I was, there I was in Queensland waiting for me. And I didn't know about energy yet. I didn't know about energetics. I didn't know about being the creator of your own reality. I didn't know about quantum physics, only a little bit. I only knew a touch about consciousness based on what I had learned at a lecture in third year neuropsychology or neuroscience. I didn't know any of this. So wherever you go, there you are. All of a sudden, we're in this house that's moldy and it floods. And we have to get up and leave within 12 weeks of moving into state. We have to pack up a whole entire house again and move again. And then we move to our new house. And all I'm focusing on this stage is like, this house can't flood. This house can't flood. I flood the house another 4 times. 4 times I flood that house. I didn't connect the washing machine correctly. I tried to connect it too strongly and I burst the pipe multiple times. Whatever I was focusing on just kept amplifying. And my ability to hold life was getting smaller and smaller and smaller because all I was doing in that moment was trying to hold it all in. All the grief, all the loss, all the feeling. And I believed so deeply on every single level of me in that now moment that I was cursed. I'd had this childhood that was so colorful. I'd now lost my sister to suicide. I'd been through abuse. I'd been through, these timelines that just shouldn't have happened. I'd had these experiences that shouldn't have happened. And then not only does my sister die, but I have to, birth my baby only 4 or 5 weeks later. And then my dad dies. And then there's more betrayal. I'm cursed. Of course, right? How often in life does this where we go? Of all of this, there's something I've done wrong. I'm doing something wrong. I'm doing life wrong. Life is laughing. I know now life is laughing. Just as I stood in that petrol station and watched it go by, I'm like, life is going to life. There is something bigger than me here. There is something bigger than me unfolding in this moment. So life kept laughing. And then I believed I was cursed. And being a psychologist and having been through the psychology system myself, which I love, like I've had incredible psychologists that I've worked with over the years, I needed to go beyond. I was all of a sudden one of those high risk people. Like I wasn't having, thoughts of self harm or anything like that. But if you looked at me on paper, this was not a pretty situation. This is someone going through deep grief. This is someone in postpartum. This is someone with high anxiety. This is someone that started having panic attacks. This is someone that was so disconnected from who she was. This was not a pretty picture. And now I believed I was cursed. And so I did whatever I could do. And I ran my psychic, this beautiful woman in Melbourne who I'd worked with to really try and understand and deal with suicide and loss after the fact. And I said, hi, I need to go into mentorship with you because I'm cursed. I'm cursed and we need to lift this hex because I can't have this in my family. I can't have this for my children. And she's like, let me introduce you to the world of energetics. Let's get back into your intuition. Let's get back into your body. Having been a type A personality for as long as I have, the good girl, the perfectionist, the high achiever, a doctor of neuropsychology. I knew I always wanted to be a doctor. I love studying. I'm literally a student of life, the personal development junkie from everything from like Landmark to Bashar to Tony Robbins. Like, give it to me. I'm here for it. I want to know how humans work. I want to know how this works. And I remember once actually sitting on this hill, I was probably about 10 years old with my sister. We were down at the beach for a summer holiday and she's like, what do you think you want to do when you grow up? And I was watching all these humans move around like the beach and being with their families. And I was like, I want to know why everyone does what they do. Why do we do what we do? Why do we make the decisions that we do? Why do we move like we do? Why do we speak like we do? Why do we create how we create? That's what I want to know. And reconnecting back to that version of me, this is what was coming so alive when I went into this intuitive mentorship because I had to move beyond my brain. I had to move beyond the frameworks I'd been taught at school. I had to move beyond the just think better. Don't worry, just wait for time to pass. I had to move beyond that. And the biggest thing that I started to realize is this grief was demanding at this point to be felt. Grief is such an interesting emotion. Like we know now that everything is energy and emotion is energy in motion. And our whole soul role of being a human is to experience. It's to experience being a human, to experience being here, to experience the duality, to experience what it means to evolve and to grow and to feel and to love and to lose. We often don't come in with that lens though. We don't come in with that lens. So feelings are bad or feelings ashamed or we shouldn't feel like that. You shouldn't be angry. You shouldn't be sad. You should be happy. You should be excited. And don't get me wrong, I'm a very high vibrational person right now. I love life. I love life. And I love feeling all of life. But at this stage, I was not her. I was her, the one that had been trained not to feel, the one that had been trained to stay in her head, not in her body, the one that would hold it in, hold it in, hold it in, hold it in, go get drunk, explode, hold it in, go get drunk, explode, connecting back to my 20-year-old self now. And then as I started to have kids, I was like, well, that's not going to work. How do I get my release? And so I would just hold and hold and hold and hold. And I used to wonder why I'd wake up every single day anxious. Every single day, I'm like, why is this? I've got the house, I've got the white picket fence, I've got the husband, I've got the children now. Why am I still feeling so sad, so anxious? Because I wasn't actually feeling it all. And I was so anchored in my past, I couldn't even meet the present moment. But grief, if you know, grief is divine. Grief is the meanest, best, demanding, loud, messed up, fucked up, powerful, incredibly deep emotion that there is. And grief is a non negotiable. If you've experienced grief and you're listening to this, you know grief demands to be felt. And this is why now, in these now moments, Ever since this really started to click for me, I say and I mean in every cell of my body, I am so grateful for my grief. I am so grateful for my grief because my grief taught me to feel. It taught me that I could no longer be available for pretending everything was okay. I couldn't pretend I was okay and just hold it in. It forced its way out of me. I tried to hold it in, as we do, and I ended up exploding because a feeling like that, love with nowhere to go, has to go somewhere. And instead of, losing it when I was at capacity with the kids and, projecting it all over my husband and everyone else, I actually started to allow myself to feel the grief, to feel the loss, to feel the sadness, to feel the anger, to feel the betrayal, to feel everything that was here to feel. And then something started to happen once I started to feel, and not be ashamed of the feeling and not try and solve the feeling, but just to create spaciousness for the feeling. I realized that being in therapy since I was 15, even as a psychologist, having to try and process the childhood and all the things, I was doing something that I didn't even know I was doing. I was talking and separating from my feelings, not validating. I was talking about my story and talking about my feelings like they were over there in a different corner to where I was. And so then where did they stay? They stayed over there in the corner. And slowly over time, the room just started to fill and fill and fill over and over and over again. And there was so many emotions here that I couldn't actually feel. My body didn't feel safe holding. They didn't feel, I didn't want to go there. Why would I want to feel grief? Why would I want to feel sad? Why would I want to feel angry? But the more you experience, the more you will experience. I was driving down the freeway early 2024, and one of the songs that I played as a mantra was Hallelujah, the Jeff Buckley version. As my dad was dying and after my sister had died, I would just listen to it over and over again, driving to his house on, the 2 weeks before he died every single day, processing my sister's loss. I would just listen to that song. And then if you ever go and listen to that song now and it ever lands for you, you see that it's all hallelujah, all of it. All of it is an expression of life. All of it is energy in motion. And so I started to change the relationship with my emotions. I started to create safety in my body to be able to feel the emotion. And as soon as I started to do this, it started to go. It started to go. Again, grief is very unique. It's not linear. So it will pop up at random points and I feel it and it goes again. But when I stopped trying to cling to my life and cling to all the emotions that were always suppressed in there, that 2022 finally allowed me to see and feel, things started to shift and started to shift incredibly quickly, incredibly quickly. So I'm in this 6-month mentorship. And all of a sudden, with all this spaciousness, I'm no longer in my mind 20% of the time, 20% of the time, 200% of the time. I'm no longer in my mind. I'm in my body. I'm in my intuition. I'm moving from other parts of me. And this is really interesting because this is coming and this is why this is unfiltered. Like we are saying it all. We're bringing on guests that are going to say it all of it. Because we're these multidimensional beings pretending that we're physical, right? And the physical is so important. It's so important. Absolutely. But it's a very minute part of what we actually are. And the reason when I was looking at this and looking at, being in the field of psychology and mental health, I'm like, we're trying to solve problems from one layer of who we are. I couldn't solve grief in my mind. I couldn't solve grief in my mind. I couldn't solve suicide in my mind. I couldn't process things just based on the human level. I had to start going beyond. I had to start going beyond the textbooks, beyond the concepts that I knew. I had to start delving into, okay, what does this feel like somatically? What does this feel like in my body? What would it be like to open, open, open to receive all of life, even the grief? And then to process these higher parts of life, I had to start to go beyond, again, the finite game that we're playing here as humans of like when you die, it's over, to understand big concepts like suicide, like why people die younger than older, why things happen. And this is where I really started to go into the realm of like the spirituality and the soul and the consciousness level and what we're actually here to do. and what we're here to experience, and how, what happens, or not so how, but like what happens when you start to open up to, wow, there's another way, and we start to shift paradigms where you no longer have to survive what's happening to you, where you get to dance with the divine of it because you know why it's unfolding in front of you, even the big moments like that, all the big moments that I've been through. And this is what started to happen. I started to move from my intuition. I started to move from what I actually wanted, not what my brain wanted me to do, not what my personal mind wanted me to do. Remember, your brain is the past, your heart is the future. Your brain can only give you information based on what it knows, and it only knows the past. So if we're trying to create new timelines from our brains, we're only ever replicating our past, maybe shining it up a little bit. If you want to tap into a quantum timeline that doesn't exist, you can't move from your brain. It doesn't work. Doesn't work. It's going to guide you. It's going to help you make decisions, but it's not the decision maker. It's the refiner as you're on that path. The part of you that knows the truth of yourself does not live in your head. It doesn't. It lives in your heart. It lives in the energy. It lives in the feeling. And this is why now I work with so many women, reconnecting them back into their bodies, where they're literally like, this is 20 years of therapy in 3 months. What just happened? Because I'm not keeping you in your mind. I'm getting you in your body. I'm getting you to open to experience. And this is where it is. And this is where the soul and the science get to combine, and everyone gets to experience this, and everyone gets to heal, and everyone gets to tap into this quantum timeline, because we have to stop ignoring that there's not another part of us that's too woo or that doesn't make sense just because we can't see it. You know, I love seeing that thing now. They're just going around like, you don't believe in energy, but you believe in Wi-Fi that you can't see, right? And you just expect it to be there. It's like, come on, let's really start to combine all these concepts so we can be whole and complete, understanding ourselves as whole and complete to begin with. So what started to happen? I get myself into this intuitive mentorship, and it cracks me open in all the ways because I'm actually listening to my body now. And what my body is screaming at this point in time is stop buying $15 gluten-free bread that is going to go stale in 2 days and taste like shit. And it's full of fillers. It's full of all this gunk that makes it taste all right in the moment, but it like really fills you up and like, not a vibe, like not the vibe. And I find this woman who does free, not free, like sourdough, gluten-free classes from her home. It's the best $200 I ever spent to this day. And I sign up. I'm like, says to my husband, you know what? I'm going to go. I don't even know why. I'm not really a baker, but I'm just going to go. I'm going to learn how to bake my own sourdough gluten-free bread. Like that is the vibe. That is the vibe we're going on. And I go to this incredible workshop for half the day. I come home with my loaf. So we make it there. We're going to bake it at home. And I score it. And it's like, oh my gosh, this feels incredible. Like scoring a loaf of bread for the first time. What is happening? I put it in the oven. And as I'm getting it out and I'm holding this steamy, hot, gluten-free sourdough loaf in my hands, mitts on, of course, fully start to cry. Like the emotion coming over me is wild, wild at this point. My husband's like, are you all right? Did you score it wrong? What's happened? So wild. And in that moment, I realized I had just done something I had never done before. Probably not since childhood. I'd just done something for me, for no one else, for me. That bread was for no one else but me because I had listened to me and I had listened to what I had wanted. And I wanted really nice bread that I could eat and enjoy with butter, fresh. And I went and did a course for me. And then I baked the loaf for me. And it wasn't for accolades. It wasn't because my worth was outside of me. It wasn't to have someone over so they could taste the bread. It was for me. And in that moment, the deep connection back to my heart, it was like, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to me. And then all of a sudden, it just started. And it hasn't stopped since, but it just started. It was like, start showing this online. It made no sense. I was so excited to just be baking bread and like knowing how to bake bread. What? And so then I just started doing these online bake sessions. Literally. I just started showing up online, hitting record, baking my bread. I was in a shitty rental. There was no lighting. It was so bad. It was so bad. And I would just pour my heart out, talking about the bread, what I was doing with the starter. And then very, very naturally, it had just started talking about my journey. Started talking about time, started talking about grief, started talking about loss, started talking about being a human, being a mother, being a psychologist. And every time I took another step, like there was so many times when I was showing up online, I'm like, I actually don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where this is going, but we're going to keep doing it until it stops feeling good. I'm still doing it, FYI, nearly 2 years later, 2 years later. And so I'm baking bread online at this point, and all of a sudden it's just magnetic. Like this lady that had started the gluten-free bake course, she's like dehydrating starters, and people are like getting their own bake kits and they're like baking along with me. There was this whole energy and this whole movement to it. It was insane. It was so insane. And I just kept going because it just felt so good to share. There was no like, this has to be a business now or this has to be that. And every time I tuned in, there was like the next thing I had to do. Go and do this podcast with your friend and share the podcast. Go do this thing. Go join this choir, this intuitive choir. I don't even sing. But I was like, oh, I'm going to go try this out. And what I know what I'm doing now in this now moment, I can see what I was doing. I was getting myself to an edge of who I knew myself to be. And I was leaping. I was going and doing something. I had no evidence that it was going to work. I had no evidence that I was going to like it. I had no evidence people were going to like me. I was moving from a completely different frequency and I was open to receiving life. I was so open to receiving life. And so to honor this journey, this was 1 year, I was around October 2023. My dad died 13th of October 2022, my sister the 16th of April 2022. So it was coming up to the 1 year of my dad's anniversary and also 1 year that they had both passed or both been in heaven. And I said to my husband, I started to receive the downloads and I was settling my 1 year old at this time, a bit over one. And after I put him down, I came out to my husband and I was like, I have to go and climb a mountain in darkness. What? You do not climb mountains and you do not climb them in darkness. So what the fuck are you talking about? I was like, I have to. I have to go and climb Mount Ninjari in darkness on the morning of 1 year post. There is something there for me. And he's like, do you want me to come with you? Me and the kids can get up. And I said, no, 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 this is something I need to do. Like, I need to do this on my own. I want to honor this journey of what the past 12 months has felt like, which was climbing a mountain in darkness. And I get up 3 a.m., 4 a.m., and I'm driving to Mount Ninjari. And at this point, I'm not gonna kid you. I'm like shitting myself. I'm sitting in the car. I've got some music quietly playing, and I can feel my heart like pumping out of my chest. I'm like, okay, I'm actually, what are you doing? Like every part of me is like, this is ridiculous. Like my brain is fully kicking in at this moment. It's like it's dark. You've never been on this mountain. Like, what are you doing? Turn away. And I get there and there's this white van in the car park. I'm like, really? Really? Like, couldn't have had like fairy lights leading up. And so I tuned in and I was like, no, this is where I need to be and I'm safe. And so I get out of the car and if I'm honest, I start running. I'm like running at this point. And then I slowly start to calm my nervous system down and be in the moment of walking. And the sun is slowly starting to come up now. So I'm getting a bit more light. And I turn the torch on my phone off and I'm climbing this mountain. And to be honest, I was like, I think I should be more emotional. Like there should be more happening at this stage. I love the brain, right? Love the brain. It never turns off, does it? There's always that incessant chatter, even having this divinely connected moment of like, this should be another way. It's like, pipe down, Chachi. Just let me be in my moment. So I get to the top of the mountain and there's this like divine lookout over the ocean. And I'm standing there and then the emotion starts to come because the sun is rising. And in that moment, I'm looking around and it's just me. And I've just climbed the mountain in darkness and nothing has happened. And this download, this voice comes through so strong, so strong. And it says, who you are is not what happens to you. It's everything you become in the process of what happens. And I'm standing there and I was like, this was never meant to happen any other way. It was never meant to be any other way. Otherwise, it would have been another way. This was meant to be all of it for me. And I remember feeling this immense relief of my judgment of life fading away, that any of it was wrong or bad or shouldn't have happened. And this is a big call, having gone through so many big experiences throughout my near 40 years Earthside. But there was just nothing wrong with it anymore. It just was what it was. And then when you truly start to accept it as it is, there's nothing to resist. There's everything to feel, but there's nothing to resist. So I'm walking down the mountain, and then the emotion really starts to come, because with this new set of eyes and with the light of day literally here, I start to see every rock, every twig, every stick, every branch, every uneven surface that I could have fallen over. I could have tripped, I could have stumbled, I could have hurt myself, and I didn't. I didn't. I climbed that mountain like a mountain climber, literally. And I was like, I'm not doing this by myself. I'm not doing this alone. At this point, as I shared, I had been tapping into other parts of me, other parts of my knowing that had been guiding me to this point in time where I was like, whoa, this is happening for me to grow, to learn, to experience, to evolve. And that was the beginning of the end. That was the beginning of it all, of everything. From that moment in time, from 14th of October to this moment in time, 27th of November, 2 years later, I cannot even comprehend how fast things have moved, how quickly we can get on quantum speed growth and healing, how quickly we can transmute our pain into power, into purpose. And this is what I started to do. The first next step always. All of a sudden, I was in another 12-month mentorship, learning deep energetics, learning how the universe works, how it unfolds on itself, universal law, energy, tying it in with the nervous system, understanding your edges, having my own downloads, creating my own framework, starting working one-to-one with clients, running 2 businesses for 2 years nearly, homeschooling 2 little kids, and feeling so spacious in my nervous system, whereas before I couldn't even work part-time without losing my shit daily. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I had this one moment where I was literally, it was summer, and I was standing in the shower, and I was like so alive and so in love with life. And I was like, nothing's changed. Like, my bank account hadn't changed. My health hasn't changed. My family hasn't changed. Like, nothing's changed. I'm just so here. I'm so here, and I'm so happy to be here. And that was the moment I knew I had to share it. That was the moment, as I said, like, even when I went into a business mastermind, I didn't even know what a fucking mastermind was. Now I'm like, let's do masterminds. I didn't even know what a business mastermind was. I didn't even know there were online coaches. I didn't know anything. I'd been in the neuropsych world. I'd been in the psychology world. I'd been in the system world. And all of a sudden, there are other people out there talking about energetics and downloads and intuition and reconnecting back to your truth and astrology and human design and all these different parts. And I was like, smorgasbord of understanding myself even more. And every layer just became another permission slip to be who I really was. Every single layer. And I'm going to be real with you. You're a human having a human experience. You're here to experience it all. When we start to deliberately move from survivor to designer, from default to designer, from survivor to creator, there are parts of you that have to shed, that have to go away, which is what I'm going to share time and time again in this unfiltered podcast. I'm going to give you it all, because I want you on this timeline as well. I want you on the timeline that you're choosing it as it unfolds for you. And you're not only choosing it, you are designing it in a way that every single moment of now means something to you because you decided it did, not because that's just what it means. That you consciously choose it every single moment. It gets to be super fun, it gets to be super powerful, it gets to be super easy, and it gets to be super possible for you. And so having this experience, getting out of the shower, being like, oh my gosh, I am alive. I started sharing it. I started using my voice. I started showing up online more. I started creating offerings. And within a year, I have worked with countless women, countless people, reconnecting them back into their heart. Again, collapsing 20 years of therapy into 3 months. And then they are all then creating their own missions and movements in the world. It literally does not make sense. It doesn't make sense. Being flown to Bali for a retreat 6 months into my business. Like, what? Does that happen? Does that even exist? And when we allow ourselves the openness For life to crack us open after the crumble, it is only inevitable that you will find your crown. I was at a recent event in Denver, and this is what I saw: the top entrepreneurial women. And this isn't about how big your business is. This isn't about how much money you make. This isn't about any of this. This is about women, people standing in the energy of, I know who the fuck I am. And I am not creating from survival anymore. I'm not surviving my life for my entire life. I'm dancing with it. I'm in the divine. I am the divine. I get to design. That was the energy of these women taking the stage. And this is what I saw as I listened and witnessed them time and time again. There was a crumble. They got cracked open. They claimed their crown over and over and over and over again. And this is when I made the conscious choice to step out of, or much before this, but step out of traditional psychology, because I wanted the freedom for people to be able to see that you are more than your mind. You have a mind. You're more than your body. You have a body. You're more than your thoughts. You have thoughts. You have beliefs. And the only reason that you feel like you are you in this now moment is because there is a version of you that you have repeated for a really long time. We know this through neuroscience. You are what you repeat. What wires together fires together. The same thoughts create the same beliefs, create the same feelings, create the same actions, create the same results, create the same thoughts, create the same feelings, create the same beliefs. Once you start to master the machinery, because we're already really doing it, right? Like, and this is why I get myself into spaces, or I just listen to, people online or different coaches, healers, podcasts, like, learn how to manifest. I'm like, I think we need to stop saying learn how to manifest. We're not teaching people how to manifest. We're teaching people how to intentionally manifest. You're already doing it. You already have the system. There's nothing out there to go and find or go and get, or, to crack the code of. You're already doing it. You just need to understand what part of you is doing it. You need to understand that survival feeling of the scarcity and the not enoughness and the lack, and that you're broken in some way, is nothing other than a paradigm that is about to shift, especially if you're starting to listen to this podcast, which is just an absolute vibe. It's a shift in paradigm. There was something when I really started to get on this quantum healing timeline, I was like, this is wild. And there's a concept called post-traumatic growth. And how often do we never hear about post-traumatic growth? What do we hear about? Post-traumatic stress, post-traumatic trauma. And it's not to say that these things don't equally exist, but it's very rare that you will actually hear about post-traumatic growth. Equally true, equally true, that your pain is the source of your power, is a source of your purpose. And when you start to see that you don't actually change the thing, like, I can't go back and rewrite the script of my sister not dying. I can't go back and rewrite the childhood. I can't go back and rewrite 2022, nor would I want to anymore. No way. No, not one cell in my body would change anything that has happened to me up until this point. But you can change your relationship with it. And this, as I shared earlier, was something I didn't understand because I wouldn't even allow myself the first step, which is just to feel it and to be with it and to accept it. And when I mean accept it, because again, the grief is super sticky and life experiences are super sticky. It's not to say accept it and get over it. Like, it's not that vibe. It's like, accept it, be with it, because it is it. We can't be with another version of life that's never unfolded. And we end up creating so much suffering. And this is what I say, it's the distance point between what happened and what you think should have happened. That's what suffering is. And we do it to ourselves because I spent 3 decades saying this happened and it shouldn't have. This happened and it shouldn't have. This is what's happening and it shouldn't be happening. Instead of, let me get curious here. What's going on? What's unfolding? Why is it unfolding? What's this mean about me? What's inside of me? How can I shift this? How can I reconnect back to my power? How can I raise my standards? How can I raise my energy? How can I raise my boundaries? How can I start designing? How can I regulate myself? How can I get back to neutrality so I can start to create from the energy that I want to amplify? That's the vibe. That's what we get to do when we step into what I like to call the inner CEO of you, the one that gets to choose it. So you're already manifesting, you're already creating, you're already doing the thing. You just haven't mastered the system yet. And this is what I am going to share with you in this podcast. I want to give you permission to become unfiltered for you so that that feeling inside, that deep connection back to who you are is allowed to shine on so many different levels. Because here's the thing, there is no mistake that you are here right now. You are not separate from existence. Sometimes we think that we're separate from the thing, don't we? Like, because the physical realm is so real that we actually feel like we're not all connected at once and we're not all the same thing, which is literally like nothing, like space and energy vibrating at different frequencies. And that our consciousness is really like collapsing wave particles into matter. And that's all life is. Like, that's the playground. But we don't think that. Like, the physical realm is so good. I feel separate to you, feel separate to someone else, feel separate to the table, feel separate, 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 separate. And then we get confused and we start to disconnect from ourselves. And then we feel like we're disconnected from existence and that somehow that life has forgotten about us and that it works out for everyone else and not me and that we're cursed. And I'm here to rewrite this paradigm for me, for you, for us, for everyone. That no, life gets to life. Yes, we are co-creating with a force much greater than us, but you are not outside of that. You haven't been forgotten. Bad shit doesn't just happen to you. You get to choose the lens of it happening. You get to choose the filter for which your brain gives you the information of the world that you're creating. And this is where it gets really fun, where we really start to deepen into and elevate the relationship between the soul and the science, between the neuroscience and energy, where we spend less time saying, it's clinically proven, it's proven, there's evidence, and more time trusting the other wisdom of us that gets to come through. And I want to close on this because this is really important. And this is important to say, to witness, to feel, to begin this entire unfiltered podcast journey with like, oh my goodness, where is this even going to go? Let's go. When you allow yourself to be undefinable, when life stops becoming about trying to get somewhere, about trying to create the safety outside of you, whether that's in the bank account, in the house, in the relationships, in the job, in the career, in the business. And don't get me wrong, I'm here for it all, right? Like, highest timeline, give me everything. Open, open, open to receive. Totally available for that in the fastest, easiest, most quickest way possible. But when that no longer becomes the thing that you need and you become the thing that you need for the sake of it, for the sake of experiencing you, and life becomes less about defining it as good and bad and more about actually living it and being with it, then nothing else matters. Because your body finally feels safe to be all of who you are and all of who you are meant to be. And that's the purpose. That is literally the purpose. How quickly can I step out of the filters, out of the safety mechanisms, out of the survival that I've created for myself so that I can actually experience who I am? And again, having worked with so many people now, this is a question I get asked. They're like, yeah, but why, Courtney? Like, why, if I'm supposed to use my voice, is my voice suppressed? Why, if my body is my liberator, was my body hurt? Why, if, I'm supposed to be deeply connected to myself and love, why did I have my heart broken? Duality, right? How would you have known the opposite? How do you know love unless you don't have love? How do you know the strength of you unless you have shitloads to hold? How do you know what it feels like to heal if you don't think that you're broken? And again, this isn't the conversation of like positive psychology, just be with it all. No. This is a deep inner knowing of the opposite will always give me the pathway to my desire, the pathway to why I am here. And giving yourself the permission to be able to actually be here and to open and to experience and to dance with the divine, then you're on the quantum timeline. Then you're like, Connie, this is 20 years of therapy in 3 months. And I'm like, I know. Because we're not in our heads anymore trying to solve life. We're actually in our bodies living it. And we know that we're divinely safe. And we know that we're divinely guided. And this is what I'm here to share with you on the Unfiltered podcast. How to tap into the designer mode of you. How to live that highest timeline. How to master the human and still know you're not the human in all your essence, but that you get to have the human experience, that you get to wake up and be happy, that you get to like choose to be in love, that you get to not have to protect yourself in your heart as you move through this like scary big world, but actually open to receive, that you get yourself to the edge of who you know yourself to be and you get to leap. You get to start the business. You get to start the relationship. You get to transform the relationship with your children, with your family. You get to show up as who the fuck you want to show up as. There's a lot of freedom, a lot of spaciousness that opens up in this. And this is what I'm so excited to share with you. So thank you so much for being here for episode 1. I am so pumped to share where we're going to go on this wild adventure of Unfiltered. I love you.